There's an unwritten rule in the forests of America. If you hear someone whistling at night, don't turn around, because sometimes it isn't human. October 2021. Deep inside the dense forests of Northern America, there's an isolated trail known as Blackwood Trail. During the day, the place looks beautiful. Tall pine trees, cold mountain air, the smell of wet earth after rain. But after midnight, the entire forest feels different. Locals say that if you hear whistling in those woods at night, you should never whistle back, because once you respond, something begins following you. Most people thought it was just another internet horror story, until Ryan Mercer went there, and after that night, he was never the same again. Ryan was a 28-year-old photographer He created videos about abandoned places, haunted roads, and isolated locations across America. Thousands of people followed his content because he always explored places most people were too afraid to visit alone. But Ryan didn't believe in fear. He thought every ghost story was fake, and that became his biggest mistake. At 6:43 p.m., Ryan uploaded his final Instagram story. The camera showed a narrow dirt trail cutting through massive pine trees while the sun slowly disappeared behind the mountains. Orange light spread across the forest as evening settled in. Ryan looked into the camera and laughed. "If I don't make it back," he paused for a second, "at least the footage will go viral." He had no idea that a few hours later, he'd be running for his life. Around 9 p.m., Ryan reached an abandoned firewatch cabin deep inside the forest. Rain had already started falling. Wind slammed against the trees outside, while the old wooden cabin creaked with every gust. Broken windows, rotting walls, the smell of mold and wet wood filled the air. Ryan dropped his backpack beside the lantern, sat down, and started reviewing the photos he had taken earlier that day. At first, everything felt normal. Then suddenly, he noticed something strange. The forests had gone completely silent. No insects, no wind, no animals, nothing, just silence. The kind of silence that slowly makes your chest feel heavy. Ryan walked toward the broken window and looked outside. Only darkness. Then, a whistle echoed through the trees. Short, sharp, human. Ryan stayed still for a few seconds before nervously laughing to himself. Probably another hiker. But moments later, the whistle came again, closer this time. A smile slowly disappeared from Ryan's face. He grabbed his flashlight and aimed it into the forest. Nothing. Only endless trees. But something felt wrong. The sound seemed far away, yet somehow it felt like whoever made it was standing right beside him. At 10:17 p.m., Ryan recorded a voice memo on his phone. His voice no longer sounded calm. Fear had already started creeping in. "I swear there's someone outside. They keep whistling, but every time I look, nobody's there." A few seconds of silence passed. Then the whistle returned, and this time, Ryan suddenly stopped talking, because the melody being whistled was the exact same tune Ryan had been humming earlier inside the cabin, as if something in the forest had been listening to him, watching him, learning him. Ryan immediately grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside. Rain poured heavily now. The flashlight beam shook through the darkness, while towering pine trees surrounded him from every direction. Then he heard footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Someone was walking ahead of him. Ryan froze. The footsteps stopped too. His breathing became heavier. Then he whispered, "Hello?" No answer. A few seconds later, a whistle echoed directly behind him. Ryan spun around in panic and dropped the flashlight. The beam rolled across the wet ground and pointed toward the trees, and for one single second, he saw it. A tall black figure standing between the trees. Far too tall to be human, Its arms hung unnaturally low beside its body. Its body looked painfully thin, and its face, there was no face at all, only darkness. Ryan sprinted back toward the cabin and slammed the door shut behind him. His breathing became uncontrollable. Outside, everything went silent again. Then, knock. A slow knock echoed against the cabin wall. Ryan froze. A few seconds later, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. Ryan grabbed his phone with shaking hands and recorded another voice memo. "I don't think it wants to come inside." Several seconds passed before he whispered something else. "I think it wants me to invite it in." At 11:03 p.m., Ryan made his final recording. Heavy breathing filled the audio. Somewhere outside, distant whistling echoed through the forest. Then suddenly, another sound appeared. A voice, very close, very soft. "Ryan, just one word," whispered slowly, like something standing inches away from his ear. And the most terrifying part, Ryan had never shared his full name online during that trip. Suddenly a loud crash interrupted the recording. Then silence, complete silence. The next morning, search teams found Ryan nearly 2 miles away from the cabin. Barefoot, covered in mud, shivering uncontrollably. He was alive, but something inside him had changed. According to the ranger who rescued him, Ryan kept staring back toward the forest, as if he believed something was still standing there between the trees, watching him. When they asked what happened that night, Ryan only said one sentence: "It whistles before it moves." Days later, investigators recovered Ryan's camera from inside the cabin. Almost every photo had been corrupted, except one. A blurry image captured at exactly 10:52 p.m. The photograph showed the trees outside the cabin, and standing silently between 2 pine trees, deep in the darkness, was a tall black figure, watching him.